Mist spreads over the surface of the dark lake. Robert stands on the old wooden pier, spinning rod in hand. Around him silence, only the distant splash of water. They say something unusual lives in the depths of Lake Midgrave. Locals call it the Silver Shadow. No one has ever seen it up close, but boats have disappeared, fishermen never returned. And here you are not just to catch fish, but to find the truth. Robert cast his line into the water. The air was heavy with the smell of dampness and old weeds. Crows circled in the sky. In the distance a boat. Someone sat on it, motionless. Suddenly, the rod twitched. A bite. But it wasn't a fish, it was something very strong. And the water around started to vibrate strangely, as if something was rising from below. Chapter 1, Shadow from the Deep. His professional gear gleamed in the dim morning light: carbon fishing rod, electronic fish finder, a set of spinning rods designed for the most aggressive predators. His rod was taut as a string. The fishing line went into the water, but not just down, it was being pulled sideways with enormous force. Then silence. Everything stopped. The rod straightened. Around him dead silence, so heavy it made you want to scream. And at that moment, something fell from the distant boat into the water. Large. Heavy. The passenger was gone. Only the boat rocked slowly, empty. Your inner compass says, this is no mere story. This is a hunt. Chapter 2, Deadly Weight. Robert braced his feet against the slippery planks of the pier, gripping the rod with both hands, teeth clenched in tension. The line was stretched like a tendon, it seemed it might snap any second. Something big, alive, and aggressive was fighting in the depths, pulling him straight into the water. Old muscle memory helped Robert step back, reeling in the catch from the depths. His heart pounded, but he kept his rhythm. This was not his first fight with an underwater giant, but this time, something was off. Suddenly, a yellow eye with a vertical pupil, as big as a plate, cut through the lake's surface. It blinked, then disappeared under the dark water. Then a deep roar, as if coming from the very bottom. The fish finder on his belt beeped. Something big was moving toward shore. Very big. And fast. Robert felt the pier start to lightly vibrate beneath his feet. His mind recalled the old Wilmore's words from the tavern. If you see its eye, it's already too late to run. Chapter 3, The Hook in the Heart of Darkness. Robert sharply placed the rod on a hook by the pier, grabbed the heavy anchor hook with a coiled metal cable lying by his backpack, and aimed straight into the heart of the churning water. His arm muscles tensed. He took a breath, aimed, and threw. The hook sliced through the water with the force of a hammer. A moment later, the cable tightened with a crackle that made the winch drum shudder. Something roared underwater, and the sound echoed across the lake, sending ripples through the mountains. Got you, bastard. Robert muttered, bracing himself against the winch. The cable pulled like a wild horse. The water churned around the entire pier. The lake's surface seemed alive. Several planks cracked, part of the platform collapsed beneath his feet. Robert jumped back but didn't let go of the cable. Something huge, like a ridge or a fin, flashed above the surface. Then a tail strike. Massive, slimy, red-black. The creature's sides were covered with old fishing nets woven into its body, and rusty hooks glistened on its back as if it had fought before and won. But not this time. Robert growled through his teeth, holding the taut cable. The creature thrashed and fought, but he was not one to give up first. Chapter 4, The Scent of the Predator. Holding the cable with one hand, Robert pulled a dark blue canister from his backpack, a special lure with pheromones of deep-water predators. He had once traded it to Norwegian whalers for a case of whiskey and an old map. They said this bait could drive any creature living in darkness mad. Even the one you shouldn't disturb. If I can't pull it out, at least break its instincts. Robert muttered. He twisted the cap, shook the canister sharply, and threw it into the water a little above the boiling spot. The canister hissed as it exploded underwater, releasing a dark cloud of pheromones that spread instantly. And then the reaction. Sudden. Furious. The creature partially surfaced, exposing a spine and part of a back that looked like a mountain ridge covered in seaweed. Its movements became sharp, erratic. It tried to flee, but the cable held. And again a roar. But this time, one of despair. It no longer controlled itself. The fish finder beeped wildly. On the screen something big circling the lure, thrashing convulsively. Robert knew, he had minutes before the creature lost all orientation. And now the only chance to make his next move. Chapter 5, The Long Game. The cable trembled in his hands like a living thing, but Robert didn't shake. He turned, avoiding the cracks in the pier, and pulled the cable to the old iron winch left from the days when timber was loaded on the lake. Its wheel was rusty but reliable. Robert threw the cable onto the drum, wedged it with a metal wedge, and checked the lock. "Old girl, hold on. Now it's all up to you," he muttered, as if the winch were his partner. The handle moved forward with difficulty. The gears creaked as they turned. The creature still spun in the water, but its movements grew heavy. The pheromones worked. A strike. Then another. The winch shuddered, screeching metal but holding firm. From the north, a storm rolled in. The fog parted, revealing the abandoned boat still rocking on the waves. Black crows hovered above it. And then Robert saw a hand hanging from the side of the boat. Pale. Human. His attention split in two. On one side the creature that was starting to falter. On the other a corpse or wounded man on the boat drifting toward the rocky shore. Chapter 6, Blood on the Water. "Screw the trophy," Robert muttered, releasing the winch handle. The cable snarled and snapped with a dull slap along the edge of the pier. The creature dashed down into the depths, leaving only bubbles and murky water behind. But Robert was already moving. He dropped the anchor from the pier, jumped into his motorboat docked nearby, and started the engine. The propeller roared, tearing the water. The boat sped through the fog straight toward the mysterious silhouette, the old wooden boat rocking near the shore where the cliffs began. Lightning flashed across the clouds, lighting the scene like an old photo. Robert stood up as he got closer. His eyes did not fail him. On the deck lay a body. A man. Older. His face gaunt, gray hair tousled, fingers clenched the boat's edge convulsively. A deep cut in his chest, like a bite or a spear wound. But his eyes half open. "Alive," Robert whispered. He threw a line, caught the man's boat, and pulled it close. Carefully climbed aboard, kneeled down, and pressed his ear to the man's chest. A faint heartbeat. Slow breathing. "Hang on, old man. You won't die here." Suddenly a splash in the water. Behind the boat, a wave rose again. Something deep and black slid right beneath them. The creature had not disappeared. It had returned. Maybe for its prize. Robert grabbed the oar, carefully turned, keeping one foot near the motor's starter cord. At that moment, he felt on the edge between man and prey. Around the rumble of thunder. The lake held its breath. Skull and crossbones. The question was simple: either he takes this man away or they both remain food for what lurks in the depths. Chapter 7, Blood and Bait. The water around the boat trembled. A powerful wave pushed the hull, and Robert nearly lost his balance. The creature was approaching again. A dull, viscous bubbling could be heard, as if something massive pushed through the muddy bottom. Robert didn't hesitate. From beneath the bench, he pulled an old metal box with a label rubbed off beyond recognition. He opened it. The familiar sharp stench hit him, rotten meat mixed with fish blood and slime. This was his last trump card bait. He had prepared for situations just like this. "Here, bastard," Robert whispered, throwing the bag of bait into the water a few meters from the boat. The bag burst in the air, and the moment it touched the water, a blood-red cloud rose around it. The smell spread instantly through the water. The water boiled. Something huge changed course. The shadow approaching the boat turned away. Robert froze, watching the underwater predator circle once, then disappear into the deep stain of bait. He had no more than half a minute. He checked the man's pulse again. He was breathing, but slowly. Robert pulled him closer, pressed him against the bench, and stood by the helm. "Hang on. I'll get us out of here." The engine started on the first pull. The propeller roared, the boat shot forward. Ahead the shore and the forest. Behind a red stain and a black shadow diving back into darkness. Midgrave was letting go. For now. Canoe. After a few minutes, the boat ran aground near the old pier. Robert pulled the man ashore and laid him on dry leaves. His face turned pale, but his eyes barely opened. You're not one of them," the old man whispered. Robert leaned closer, but the man fainted. At that moment, footsteps sounded from the forest. Someone was approaching. The lake fell silent. The surface, just a moment ago stirred by fury, became smooth as glass. But in that silence, something remained: the taste of blood in the water, a shadow under the boat that didn't vanish, only receded. On the shore, the old man opened his eyes again briefly, as if for the last time. "You are not the one they expected," he whispered. And in the forest, something watched. And not only the lake remembered Robert's name. Because creatures from the depths never forget those who manage to touch them.